Howdy, folks. Happy Thursday. I make this observation at this time of year every year. It's almost colder when it's rainy and 40 or 35, just above freezing, than it is when it's snowing and say 20. I don't know what it is.
It's the time of year, you're done with it. It's the mental battle.
Yeah, but I can feel the cold in my bones. I mean, my hands are
dampness. It could be the dampness.
Yeah, I think somebody said it's the relative humidity or something.
Yeah, it could be that.
I don't know. I'm not a meteorologist.
Me neither.
So, but it's one of those days where, and the people that I have coffee with in the morning, they've been cooped up inside the cafe and they're older, so they're COVID fatigued and they wanted to get outside, and I'm like, it's 45 degrees and I'm freezing my good yoons off. So it's like, but anyway. All right. Let's start off with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
So let's talk about something that occurred recently that we didn't get a chance to talk about here. So the Scott Boras situation in baseball, it was interesting because there was an executive vote that happened with baseball for, ending the lockout and everything else. And 5 of Scott Boras's clients were members of the PA, for their team. And basically it's a 10-member executive board. 5 of them were Boras clients, and the 5 Boras clients voted to not end the lockout. And, what if he had 10? I mean, Major League Baseball has to really look at this now and say, okay, you can't let one agent basically have, 40 or 50% of the players of a sport, or you're going to have trouble in that sport.
Well, it's not like, it's not a situation like, say, just to get political for a second, like the Senate Judiciary Committee. If they've voted against bringing Kajani Brown Jackson to the full Senate, I don't think that they would, it would be able to go to a vote of the full Senate. In this instance, I think they voted 8-0 against the new CBA, but then it went to everybody and they voted in favor of it. So really, they showed their displeasure with it because obviously Boras wanted, I think he wanted
contracts for his guys.
Right. Well, that plus I think he wanted a cap floor to force the teams that aren't paying any money to be competitive, and he didn't get that. And that's the thing. And you've seen this for everybody who complains about hockey right now. Watch baseball and tell me that if you're a fan of the Baltimore Orioles, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Kansas City Royals, or most recently, I won't even say that.
They're only spending $33 million this year.
Stupid. But no, the one that's the most obscene is what the Cincinnati Reds have done. They've completely just dismantled their team in the span of about a week and a half.
Yep.
Traded a bunch to Seattle, traded this guy there, this guy. I feel sorry for Joey Votto being stuck on that team. I mean, it's nice to make $20-some-odd million like he's doing, but he's never going to win there because they just stripped the team. And the reason for that is because there's no cap floor, and those teams don't have to spend money to win. It's going to be perpetual rebuild after perpetual rebuild. It's just a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it's one of those things. And one more quickie little pre-show, because like Timothy said, hey, sorry the Jets didn't get Tyreek Hill. I mean, look, I recognize when a team is being used for leverage, but my issue here with the Jets is what I wrote down in an article on Sportsology a couple weeks ago is just that there's only 3 things can really make a team a landing spot for players. One is to get some big name players by overpaying. 2 is by not cracking a tooth, Michael Jello. 2 is
I wasn't eating chicken fingers.
2 would be to have a coach that everybody wants to play for, or 3 being, you have a GM that's like, hey, you know what, this guy's so over the top great that you want to go to that organization because you know what, he's been taking care of players and he's signing the right players, and they don't have any of that. Now, the only person that could overcome all of this, and Mike has witnessed this, would be Zach Wilson. If Zach Wilson becomes a star quarterback, then all of a sudden players will be willing to come. But otherwise, it's amazing to me that the Jets are in a massive media market and they are basically no better off than the Jacksonville Jaguars in that regard.
If you build it, they will come. Nobody 4 years ago wanted to come to Buffalo. Nobody. It was like the guys that they had were the guys that they drafted. All of a sudden, Josh Allen has turned into one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and that's partly on him, partly on how he was coached.
Mm-hmm.
And now Von Miller's coming, and you got veterans coming and taking less to come here. You know, they get Jamison Crowder as a slot receiver. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you'll get two types of players. You get the players who want to get paid and want to win a Super Bowl. And you get guys like Crowder who come here saying, if I put up big numbers for 1 year with Josh Allen, I can turn that into a big free agent deal. And that's fine. That's like, you know, the same thing that happens in Major League Baseball and the same thing that happens in the NHL. Like with, you know, you don't think that Evander Kane signed with Edmonton because he could play with Connor McDavid, inflate his stats, and get another contract? Of course he did.
Now, my one question for you is, because Crowder is going to replace Cole Beasley, was Beasley just too much of a pain in the neck at this point for the organization to deal with?
No, I don't think it was that. I think he still was well liked. I mean, obviously the whole COVID and vaccinated thing was an issue. It was just simply, he's 33 years old. He's starting to slow down. He was starting to, you know, get dinged up with injuries. I think it was just a case of he's, you know, let's decide a year before rather than a year after, because he probably would have either had to rejig his deal or extend him and move the money around. And I don't think they wanted to do either. That's why they cut him. And I mean, we'll see if he gets a job. I'm sure he'll get a job someplace else because there's going to be a team, you know, maybe the Giants sign him. Probably that's what happens.
Here's one more bonus on the pre-show, because I know a lot of times when the regular show comes out, it'll be cut. If anybody watched the Top Prospects game yesterday, and I admit I DVR'd it because I don't have the time to sit and watch for commercials and all that. Just fast forward through the intermissions, because the bar down guys are brutal. Now, I had never really experienced them because I don't get TSN on a regular basis. I've seen some witty tweets, and I'm okay with that. Boy, I got to tell you, in studio, it's a whole different world. You wonder if they were told, hey, guys, we know that you have all this inside stuff when you're recording and you're going on live in Canada, but you're now on NHL Network in the States. Maybe you should, you know, like let everybody in on the joke if there's some really funny stuff here, because I just didn't see it. And, you know, like Mike, here's a perfect example. If we all of a sudden went national on some, I don't know, other network, you know, we would have to sort of let people in on the joke that, hey, I make fun of Buffalo once in a while. You don't like condiments. Like there was a joke about, you know, Winnipeg, like that, you know, there's two great players in Winnipeg right now for the Ice. And, you know, one of the guys goes, these guys are Winnipeg Ice. And I'm sure, you know, Joe Blow, whoever was to his right, doesn't like that, but, you know, that's just the way it is. And it's like, well, I don't know why he doesn't like that. These guys are great players. They're going to go top 5 in the draft. Like, I don't understand. And, you know, like one guy was making a statement about how many burgers a guy eats in his pregame thing. Like, and again, look, I look for fun stuff. That's fine. But then he goes, well, if you don't care about this, or you don't think this is good, then you can go kick rocks. And I'm thinking, why would you get so invested in minutia? It's okay to report minutia, but why would you get so invested to that you would tell the audience, well, if you don't listen to me, and if you don't think it's funny like me, then don't listen. And it's like, I don't get it. I didn't get the whole thing. I think the issue here for me is you had a different audience for this broadcast. And how about just educating people who may be tuning in that just want to know about the prospects that don't know them? That to me would be the biggest thing that you could do here.
Yeah, and I don't know, because I didn't watch it either. I was watching the Leafs Devils game. I don't know. Did they have Bob McKenzie, who's usually up?
I didn't see the first intermission, and I definitely was not going to watch the third after that. So I don't know if Bobby Margarita was on it or not. I guess I'll find out at a later date.
Yeah.
But just the idea that like they would have a segment like this, even if this was the only segment they did, it was like such an inside segment.
Yeah.
It just definitely did not translate. And again, you're picking, there was one point where they said, well, let's pick the best. What did they say? It was like they're flaming hot, whatever. I don't know. Like, and they're trying to pick the best player, but they're doing it based on this game. And it's like
It's an all-star game. I mean, okay,
right, why would you do that? Just talk about the best player.
For educational purposes, and obviously I'm not going to travel to Alberta or British Columbia. And last night's game was in Kitchener. When the game was in, I think it was St. Catharines, at wherever the Niagara Ice Dogs play. That was 2015. I went to that game to cover.
We went to Hamilton too.
And we went to Hamilton too, and that was 2019, I believe.
19.
So I went to that game, and the reason I did was because McDavid, Marner, Strome, Taylor Radish, all the 2015 draft class was there. It's an educational experience, but it's a friggin' all-star game. There's going to be hitting. There might be fighting every once. It's an all-star game. So to say who's the MVP again, it's like great.
No, this wasn't the MVP. This was like whatever terminology they used to basically show the best player.
Right.
And the issue was they took Shane Wright out of it. They're like, well, let's take Shane Wright out of it. So I'm thinking, okay, so they're going to do it just based on the draft, but they did it based on the game. So
that's like playing fantasy hockey in the 80s and splitting up Gretzky's goals and assists.
Yeah. I was really confused at it. And, a couple of the guys that were picked were really good. One of them, I think, is on the edge. Some people like him, some don't. And I'm educating myself more about him. But it was just one of those things where and again, I get it. Maybe this broadcast isn't for me, but I can't imagine there weren't a lot more people like me that tuned in that were just like scratching their heads as to what was going on. That's all.
All right, let's start the show. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, March 24th, 2022.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right, we'll start with some of the games from last night. We'll save, and I'll just say this right now. I'm calling him Evgeny Dadonov for the rest of his friggin' life.
Is this out of protest?
It's been Dadonov his entire career, and all of a sudden we're hearing Dadonov. It's me. I'm sorry. It's the same thing it's Alexander Romanov, not Romanov. It drives me friggin' batty. It's so ridiculous. Anyway,
wasn't it like the Romanovs? Like that's how you pronounce it? Yeah.
Okay, if he doesn't want to be associated with the Tsar of all the Russias, I get it.
I think that's what it is, Mike. Like people, they sometimes decide when they have a last name if it's also coincides with somebody else who they don't like or people don't like with a last name, then they try and make it sound different, even though it's spelled the same.
Now we've learned from Anthony, since Anthony's wife is Russian, that there's always an emphasis on the second syllable of the Russian name. But you would think Dadonov has been in the NHL for, I think, 6 or 7 seasons. He was in Florida, then he went to the KHL, then he came back, he went to Florida, he went to Ottawa, now he went to Vegas. He's been around for a long time, and he's been Dadonov, and now all of a sudden it's Dadonov.
Well, we were all wrong, and you're wrong too.
Fight me. It's Dadonov until he croaks. Okay, so last night, and we'll talk about the esoteric first, because we were having this little debate and there were some cute tweets out there. You know me, I'm a bitter jerk. Okay. When the reverse retro jerseys came out last year, I despised them. There's never been gray in the Leaf jersey. You had an emblem that basically you could see with a satellite from 50 miles above the earth. It covered the entire front of the jersey. It was an ugly, ugly jersey. Okay. Yesterday, they had the next generation jersey. It was basically black replacing white on the road jersey. Same, just that was it. And then if you turned it inside out.
Well, hold on. You didn't explain the blue. The blue was like an electric blue. It was a different color.
It was a little more fluorescent. Yes. Which I didn't mind, like with the Dallas Stars.
I liked it. I thought it looked sharp.
I thought look, as much as I hated the reverse retro jersey, the jersey last night was fine. But the smiley face flip around jersey, the Justin Bieber design. Okay, that's not for me. I'm 54 years old.
People will wear it just to be different. I get it.
Yeah,
they wear that. Would they ever wear that in a game? No way.
Yeah, they were saying that, like, now there's a rule: if you start the game with the jersey, you have to end the game with the same jersey. They were saying, I just heard on one of the radio broadcasts that they may wear that the black and yellow jersey for the next gen game next year. I would wave off on that one because that jersey is a joke.
They will get destroyed.
You know, I don't care. I don't care if Justin Bieber is friends with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. It's an ugly jersey, but you know, the other one was fine.
No, the other one was fine. I actually thought it looked good. There's a video that I put up on Sportsology from Dave Reed on the NHL Network. It's funny. Sometimes you go to bed, you have a network on or something, you turn on the TV and there's something on there. And I just happened to catch the tail end of Dave Reed's rant as to why he doesn't like the New Jersey and because he played for the Leafs. And it's really funny. Like, I implore you to watch the video. You will laugh out loud. There's no way you can't laugh.
I didn't sort of get the humor there, but so anyway.
No, but you did, as far as at the beginning where they showed his face.
Yes.
And he's like pointing at it. Like, he had a visceral reaction.
Yes, he did. And fine. I believe he's older than me, so he's just and he's a Leaf alumnus, so you know he feels passionately about it. That's fine. Getting to the game though, and now I thought the Leafs weren't particularly sharp. They hadn't played in 3 days, and when you're playing every other day and then you get a 3-day respite, it was, you know, something that or respite, as other people say. So that's the Dadonov of. Just
to explain to Johnny Red, Johnny, the reason Mike brought it up is because the player is now saying, this is how I want it pronounced. And so Mike was just protesting that. He's not saying the guy should do it the way we want it. He's just saying he's not going to acknowledge it.
You would think that he would have clarified this at some point early in his career, that all of a sudden now his name is infamous with this situation with Vegas and Anaheim, and all of a sudden he's correcting people and saying it's Dadonov instead of Dadonov, when it's been Dadonov for 7 years. It's like, you know, you got one brother saying my name is pronounced Caberla, and the other one saying my name is pronounced Caberlet. Could you get together in the offseason and decide one pronunciation, for Christ's sakes?
It'd been nice.
So anyway, and we got our usual Caberlet reference there. Thanks.
Yes.
Okay, so the Leafs last night were not particularly sharp. They did get a decent performance out of Peter Mrazek, which was a sort of breath of fresh air, because I think if he had played badly, they would be scrambling to say, Jack Campbell, get back in the lineup as soon as possible.
He did only make 20 saves, but
he did. Right, I agree. But he did make the saves that they needed him to make.
And that's important.
And that's the most important thing. Now, that being said, they were trailing in this game until they got the go-ahead goal with 4 minutes, a little under 5 minutes left to go in the third period. And unusually, they got two shorthanded goals, one from your boy Ilya Mikheyev.
Hold on. All right, so let's stop it here. He is not my boy.
Yes.
He's a guy that I identified earlier this year that he's playing better, and he seems to be reaching his potential. And Mike wants to keep him at a low salary and in his mindset that he's just not very good. It doesn't matter what you say, Russ.
I will talk slow so you can understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, thank you. Ilya Mikheyev in his first two. Now, granted, he had injury issues. He had a skate cut in a game against New Jersey in his rookie season. And he was out until the bubble. And then last year, he just didn't play very well. I can't remember how many goals he had. I think he had like maybe 7. My joke is he couldn't shoot the puck into Lake Ontario from Lakeshore Drive. And that's, that's, he's got a lot of talent. He's big. He's fast. He's a pretty good defensive winger. He can play the left side and the right side. I mean, in terms of KHL imports, he's been one of the success stories, like Nikita Zaitsev was before things went bad. But yeah, okay, first year, 8 goals in 39 games. Second year, 7 goals in 54 games. So he missed a couple games. This year, he misses the first. He breaks his thumb in the last preseason game. He's out for the first 2 months. He comes back and he's got 13 goals in 34 games. So he's going to put up a career year, probably at this pace with about 20 games left, he's got an outside chance at 20. If he scores 20, he's gone. I mean, I think he's gone already. I think there's no way they're going to be able to afford to re-sign him. I'm just saying that there definitely was motivation here, where I don't think there was motivation in place previously, because he's going to be a UFA and
he's shooting more. He's just a better player now, Mike. There's always a little motivation in a walk year, but a walk year does not transform a player who was not performing at this level. A walk year lets you have a career year when you're already an established player. So I don't fully agree with this.
I mean, okay, right now, like his first year, his shooting percentage was 8.2%. His second year, his shooting percentage was 6.5%. It's doubled this year. It's 13%.
But look at the shot difference. The shot difference.
Right. Well, yeah, right. He's got 100 shots in 34 games, whereas he had 107 shots in 54 games. So yes, per game he's shooting about 3 shots per game. I still
can't score if they don't shoot, right?
Right, but honestly, for the percent, 13% for him is unsustainable. I will bet you anything he ends up under 10% by the end of the year. He's just not a gifted goal scorer. He hustles, he works. I'm not taking anything away from him there, but of course he does this in his walk year, which makes it impossible for the Leafs to be able to re-sign him.
I can't be happy for a guy when he's having a good year.
Of course not. Of course, I'm a bitter jerk. But okay, so
one more thing. I think this is a good discussion point for the game.
Okay.
So I see people putting up that Jack Hughes is good, and I think it's time to revisit all the times I got texts for the last couple of years asking if he's a bust. All the times in his draft year when I was asked, isn't Kakko better? Why isn't Kakko the number one? Why is Hughes the number one? Does anybody remember any of this? I just want to ask that question out there and just see what the chat room says. And if you're listening, if you kind of remember any of this, I just want to know.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I was somebody who said this guy's got a lot of talent. I saw it when he played at the World Junior, and he had just come back from injury, and he was playing that well. And everybody's like, he's small. He's the first pick. They didn't get a big year out of him in his rookie year, like Austin Matthews.
Block Randy. Look at what Randy put. Block him.
Yeah, Randy, come on, please. And you would think that Russ, being somebody who is a fan of the Rangers, would say, oh yeah, no, he's just not better. I mean, I think he's gonna be a good player, but he's not better than Jack Hughes.
He's never gonna be better than Jack Hughes.
Yeah, no way. So, but now Hughes has got 20 goals. He's a water bug. They can't catch him. I mean, there were a couple instances last night where, and I'm not saying he's McDavid, but McDavid is one of the few players that can do this, that he gets the puck in the neutral zone and he blows by everybody before they even have a chance to blink.
Yeah, the acceleration is great. Him and Quinn both have that. He has better acceleration than Quinn, but Quinn has better vision and I think can dissect things quicker than Jack. I think that's the difference between the two.
Now,
Luke, Luke's having a great year too, so we'll talk about him someday.
Now, I'm not skipping by this Buffalo-Pittsburgh game because of any animosity toward the Sabres. It's really a meaningless game because the Sabres are. I'll just say this: the Sabres, they're advancing and they're playing a lot better than most people thought. I thought that they were going to be 30th, 31st, 32nd, and they're playing much better of late. And you can see that guys like Tuck and guys like Krebs.
Let's talk about Peyton Krebs for a minute, because again, even on this show, how many times was I asked, is he really good? How many times was I asked, and this is by everybody on the panel, this is by people who are coming in, is he really going to be a big deal of this deal? What could he really do at the end? How many times did we hear that, Mike?
Yeah. Oh no, tons. And the funny thing is sometimes you make a move out of necessity or by a mistake or just say, yeah, let's throw them. Throwing Tage Thompson up the middle, and now he's got 27 goals.
Yeah, he's reaching his potential as a center, which is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and this is a guy who had tons of injuries. Now he was a talented player. We should point out,
going into his draft year, he was well known. He was big. He performed well at the combine. Like, there were a lot of things to like about Tage Thompson. We were talking about.
And he took the hit for the criticism on the Ryan O'Reilly deal because he wasn't Jordan Kyrou or Robert Thomas. And the whole point of that was not to say Tage Thompson wasn't a good prospect. He's had injuries the last few years, and this year he stayed healthy and he's playing really well. The whole point of that was the Sabres organization took less to not pay the signing bonus, which is a reflection of where their mindset is in terms of investing in the future of the club. Had they paid the signing bonus, they probably would have gotten a much better return than Tage Thompson and Patrick Berglund and Vladimir Sobotka. I mean, it's just, but Thompson is going to, he's got another year at $1.4 million. They better open up the coffers because he puts up another year like that.
Oh, they're going to be paying him.
They'll be paying him $6, $7, $8 million. Okay, but that game, in terms of the grand scheme of things, sort of meaningless because the Sabres are out of it, and Pittsburgh is they got a point out of it. The game that really registered was Vancouver and Colorado, and this was Colorado with all their new players. And Vancouver, sort of in a situation where, they've got to start winning at probably like a 750 clip to be able to get into the playoffs. And with Yaroslav Halak in goal, they beat the Colorado Avalanche 3-1. And now if you look at the standings in the West, I mean, this wild card race is as boring as it is going to be in the East. It's going to be nuts in the West because Right now you've got Colorado running away with the Central, St. Louis with 79, Minnesota with 78 in the Central. In the Pacific, you have Calgary with a 6-point lead over LA, Edmonton at 75. Here are your wild card teams. Nashville at 78. They probably, they're probably safe right now unless they go into a death spiral. But Dallas 73, Vegas 72, Winnipeg 70, Vancouver 70.
Yeah.
All these teams are in it, and the team that again, we'll talk about Dadonov when Ek gets here. I mean, Vegas is in trouble for one reason. They've played the most games. They played 66. Dallas has 4 games in hand. Winnipeg 2, Vancouver 1, Nashville 2. That's where their problem is. I continue to assert that the team that's in trouble here is Edmonton.
Yeah, it does. Neither looks good, right? But we know that at least that Vegas can figure it out better than Edmonton in net. And I think in the end, that's what will happen for them. Where Edmonton, if their goaltending isn't good, they have no other options. And so that is their problem.
This is breaking news. I just repeat that, or just read this, and we can talk about it for a few minutes.
The anchor bar sold? Is that? I was hearing a rumor.
Yes, it's called the Murder House now. Stephen Wino, our colleague, just reported that the IIHF has opened up ethics investigations into the Russian Hockey Federation for propaganda sent to KHL teams and former President Rene Fasel for his connection to Russia and public comments about the war in Ukraine. Okay, Rene Fasel, it's widely known that he's been considered sort of a pawn of the Russians.
Yeah, I've interviewed him. I've sat in his press conferences, Mike. I've never bought what he was selling once.
Yes. So this is not a surprise. And something that Elliot Friedman said on the Merrick show earlier, I think will resonate in terms of what we're going to see over the summer. There are North American players, European players who could not get their money out of Russian banks because the KHL deposited their salaries into Russian banks before all these sanctions went into place.
Oh, poor guys.
Right. Plus the ruble crashed and they were being paid in rubles. So basically they were playing over there. They probably lost about 50% of their salaries. Yes. This will affect these players in terms of them wanting to play in North America, even if it's in the American Hockey League, rather than going over to Russia and playing in the KHL. The KHL, I'm not saying it's going to get killed by this, but you're already talking about Jokerit not going back to the KHL because they're in Finland, and obviously there's, but we've seen that league
it's going to shrink a little. Let's be fair.
You could see more teams shrink, and it could be exclusive Russian players. As much as there's going to be an effect in terms of the draft and in terms of teams being willing and able and to draft Russian players, you're also going to have North American players and maybe some European players opting to play in the American Hockey League and travel on buses than to lose their money going to play in Russia.
Yeah, no question about it. I did want to answer the chat room for something for Dex. We have talked about Stuart Skinner. When we're talking about Edmonton's goaltending, we're like, he's not the answer this season. That's what
they don't think he's the answer because they keep going back.
Right. For this season. I like him, but they're not going to be for this year.
Right. Statistically, he's been the best one of the three, but they keep going back to Mikko the Sieve.
Right.
So, and Mike Smith, and
honestly, that's who the players want. It's Koskinen right now. That's who they sort of, and even if he's the one that's going to stab him in the back in the end, that's the one they want.
I think they're intimidated from him because he's 6'8", but it'd be nice if he could stop a puck when it's meaningful.
There's a lot of prospect questions in here, Mike. I'll answer them while we're waiting on Eck, because there really is a lot. So Anthony Kennard asked about Bobby Trevino with UMass. He's a really good player. He's fast. He can score goals. He's a very energetic guy out there. He's always having good shifts. He's 5'8". So I think the fact that he's 5'8" is going to limit the teams that want him now in an NHL that is trying to get bigger and faster again. So that's going to work against him a little, but somebody will sign him, but I don't know who that is. I don't have a good feeling about it right now. I'm going to be at the regionals this weekend, and maybe I'll get a better idea of that then. So that's your answer on Bobby Trevino, and then I was going to answer there's one other one, and then I'll pass it to Eck. Tice Thompson. Esmir asked about him. Tice Thompson has got a bomb of a shot. He does. It's an unbelievable shot. He is a really good player. I think he is a future NHLer, and I think the Devils will get another good player. So I do think the other Thompson's good too. And Luke Hughes, I could see him coming out, especially with his brother being in New Jersey, regardless of how the season's going, because he's a Hobie Baker guy. He's got 16 goals. He's overcome his injury. So it's very possible he'll be one of the guys leaving too.
But I just have to say this about the Devils: as much as I like Hughes, and I think Heischier is really good. He's got 20 goals. There's a lot of room for improvement there. I mean, the goaltending. Nico Dawes played really well, but he's 20 years old.
Yeah, their goaltending's a little suspect, and even their defense is still suspect.
Now they're probably going to use the $9 million that they were paying PK Subban and use that on probably 2 or 3 good defensemen. Hughes might be.
He could be one of them, but I wouldn't rush him into it. But they might.
Right, they'll get him on his ELC, but I'm just saying, that's a lot of money to spread over a couple or 3 players. And I'm pretty sure Hughes's big contract kicks in next year.
Next year, I think. Yeah,
so that might be the counterbalance. But really, there's a lot of room for improvement.
But they're close. Like this, I will say this: the Devils are a lot closer to finally turning it around than a team like Ottawa.
Yeah, they are.
They're closer than you think. But they do have some deficient areas, but they're close to being fixable, I think.
Well, that's the thing, Aki. I think you've got teams that I think are going, if you go arrow up, arrow down. Buffalo is arrow up because of the way they've played. New Jersey is, I think, not as much, but still arrow up because of the talent they have on hand. And Detroit, especially from what we learned from Kevin with Sider and then Edvinson and the other young talent that they have. Ottawa's arrow down. Columbus is sort of like even. I mean, there are teams that are going in the wrong direction.
For sure.
Honestly, I think I think Philadelphia, and we're going to talk about the Metro, about the deadline. I think Philadelphia is about even, and maybe even going down a little bit because I don't like the direction that they're going.
The thing with the Flyers is like as frustrating as it was this year, I think the thing with them, we'll talk about them, but for sure. But I think if we're going to hour down with them, I think that they are pretty much to be determined. I really do. I think that there's
why I said even. Yeah.
so many injuries.
I still would put Arrow down right now.
So many injuries and so I think and some good prospects on the way, pretty close. I think.
Well, here's my one thing for you, Eck.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this might change you from being an even to an arrow down. So we know Ryan Ellis is out for the year. We knew he was out for the year a while ago. It's just nobody had said it, right? So if this were a normal operating situation, he would have gotten an operation already. But clearly it's some sort of situation where they were trying to rehab him before operation or rehab him instead of an operation. And as you know, a lot of times these kinds of situations end up taking longer than if you just got operated on, if it was possible. So, there's a belief right now of fans, and I can't say I'm in that camp yet, that don't believe he'll start the season next year, regardless of what Chuck Fletcher says. And right now I have to say it's kind of hard to believe it until you actually see him either getting operated on or they say, hey, you know what, he's on this course of action. But right now they're still trying to determine, and that's never a good thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Ellis is definitely a big key. If he there's no reason to think he would return. I mean, honestly, it is possible. I mean, I hate to be like the Mr. Super Negative on this thing, but he's been hurt so many. It's been a couple of years now. This isn't just like this isn't just brand new this year,
No, if you remember on the call when I was on the call when he became a Flyer, he even bristled over, I think it was a hand injury when someone asked him about it, and he was just like, "Oh no, you got that wrong," and whatever. And he was. There was an issue there on the call with that. So I think he's already defensive about things that he's had.
And think about it this way. Ellis is a smaller defenseman who has been reliant on his speed for most of his career. And if his knee injury is a chronic thing and he loses a step, then he's not the defenseman that they traded for.
Right. He'll still have a great shot, but otherwise you're right.
Okay. Let's start with the teams in the Metro. And the only move that sorry, go ahead.
Good. No, okay, go ahead. You go, Mike. Go ahead.
The only move that Carolina did of consequence was the three-way deal involving Max Domi coming to the Hurricanes. And honestly, I was sort of nonplussed about this one, Russ.
Yeah.
Like Max Domi. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a skilled player, but he's not. I don't think he's a difference maker. I think he's more of a secondary offense guy, and maybe not even worth the trouble that they went to filter 25% of his salary through Florida. They didn't give up much. They gave up Aiden Reschuk, who's a defenseman for I think BC.
Yeah.
But still, I don't know. I mean, is this a consequential move for Don Waddell?
No, I don't think it really moves the needle. Here's an interesting thing. So in Domi's draft year, he played for London. A lot of people were super high on him, and a lot of people ripped me early on because I didn't have him high in my rankings. And I said part of the reason is because I wanted to look at him more, and also part of the reason was because I wasn't as completely sold as everybody else. And eventually he creeped up my rankings, but never to the point where I think a lot of other people had him, because I could look at Max Domi one day and say, hey, this guy's fast, he's skilled, he's whatever. And I could look at him another day and say, what's with his decision making? Why did he take that stupid penalty? And that's my problem with him. So I don't think this moves the needle that much.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting about Waddell, he's sort of been a case study in how a team can get better if you just don't do much.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like how like some teams like they tinker and
overdo it. Yeah,
they overdo it. They let Hamilton leave. They really just they haven't.
Oh, you mean Seth Jones?
No, Dougie Hamilton.
Doug Hamilton.
Oh, Carolina. So sorry.
Carolina. Yeah, they let Hamilton.
Right.
I was looking up Columbus on the next.
Can't do that to me, Mike. You know I'm not that. You know I'm not that. Well, you immediately threw my whole world for a loop. I thought I know you're usually more on top of this than I am. So you lost my mind. Like Doug Hamilton was a member of the Carolina Hurricanes, correct?
I'll drink some Thor's.
Okay, good. So they did not sign him, and everybody thought that would be disastrous, right? But then they sort of fall into, the New York. Your neighbor Russ down there in
Jersey Devils.
Yeah.
No, what's his name?
Tony DeAngelo.
Yeah, thank you. See, I told you I wasn't that good. So they fall into D'Angelo, who turns out to be Hamilton and maybe more to them. At times he's been amazing.
A right wing Hamilton.
Yeah, and well, but forget all about that. He's a hell of a hockey player.
He still has to prove it in the playoffs. He's only played 3 playoff games with 1 assist.
But
that's true. But come on, he is definitely
setting himself up for a payday right now.
He is, but hell, if he can play like this, I might not believe it is politics.
Like I said, when the playoffs come in, it definitely changes, and we'll have to see if it changes for him. Just
make sure you sign in a red state.
I just think it's interesting. Well, he's in one. I just think it's interesting that 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 this team has continued to improve and gotten really good, really despite themselves sometimes. I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way. Just like they just really haven't gone out. I think about the players on this team.
I will say it like this, Ek.
Yeah.
I will say that it looks good for Don Waddell for sure.
Yeah.
If Rod Brindamore wasn't this coach,
I totally agree.
I don't think it would look this good for Don Waddell.
There's no question about that. But Anderson, the goalie is another one. He's like, he could have gone either way, but he's turned out really good. He's turned out really well for them.
Playoffs haven't started yet.
Yeah, thank you very much.
The playoffs haven't started yet, right? So all that's the case. But anyway, let's move on from Carolina. We got a lot of teams.
Okay, so now coincidentally, as I was saying, as I got sidetracked on Seth Jones. Columbus, the only move they made was trading Max Domi. They did not trade Korpisalo. They did not trade Dean Kukin, who some people were saying was like, a depth target for some teams. Yeah. So really, Jarmo didn't do much. And I don't know about that because, I mean, we heard Laine's name out there. We heard a few other names out there. Nothing got done. Maybe those were summer moves, and now we'll see if that's the case. But they didn't accomplish a lot either.
They didn't want to move Laine. That just ended. That was they thought they might have to, but then, Laine has also really, had a rebirth there, right now. So
yeah, but is he going to re-sign with them?
Yeah, is this all about just trying to get a big payday someplace else? Right, that's the big question.
Right.
But I think the Voracek move worked out for them pretty well.
It did. It worked out for both sides. It did.
It worked out for both sides. I agree. But both players had better seasons than they had last year. So.
And you have – this is why I had Seth Jones on the brain. You have to think that they consider the move that they made with Seth Jones a success because already they're talking about Seth Jones possibly being on the market in Chicago, not because of anything that he did that is bad, but because the Blackhawks are going to completely reset under Kyle Davidson, and they're probably gonna try to move Kane, maybe move Taves, and maybe move Seth Jones. And if that's the case, then you have to say that they were right to make the decision not to pay him $9.5 million.
I got to tell you, Taves had this "woe is me"
I heard
the other day that was just like, nobody feels bad for you, Jonathan Taves. You're a good guy, yes.
You won 3 Stanley Cups.
Nobody feels bad for you.
Yeah, that is the reality, isn't it?
It is. Now, as far as Columbus, my 2 cents. I think Kukan will be a Philadelphia Flyer when John Tortorella is named coach. You can mark that one down in the fun column.
Anyway, Tortorella's going to be named coach here.
Will they bring in Stu Bickle
as an assistant coach? Maybe. I will say this though, Chinnikov, I still don't like. I think they're forcing him in there. I know he's got 7 goals, but he is a one-trick pony. I don't know if he's ever going to get better at anything else other than being fast and having a good shot. He's minus 23. He's a rookie though, so we'll see. But
yeah,
look, Cole Sillinger's been great, better than I think we all thought, which is good because I was pretty high on Cole Sillinger. Anyhow, I just didn't know he can be impactful this year.
Yeah,
I think Columbus is sort of in the middle. I don't think they're trending up or trending down. I think they are going to have to spend some money though, if they want to be able to keep up with the Joneses, as a lack of a better phrase.
Well,
but I do think they're going to have to spend some money if they want to keep pace.
They supposedly were in on Chychrun because
they're very in on Chychrun, and I have from very good sources that I think they would almost be the favorite for Chychrun in the summer. I would put them there right now if I was to list teams. Okay. I would put them as the favorite. I think that was their goal, and I think because they basically were, from what I was told, they weren't going to make the Chychrun deal now, but and neither was Arizona basically. But Arizona was keeping an eye on them and saying, hey, how long, how much do you think we get? What do you think we might get for Chychrun in the summer? I think they've had these discussions already, and that was a lot of the reasons why Chychrun didn't move anywhere, because they realized what they could get from Columbus was so much better than what they were getting at the deadline from other teams. I really do believe that played into it.
Here's an update. So I'm following Stu Bickel now. He is an assistant coach with the Springfield Thunderbirds. So Mike, I wasn't too far off. He really could be an assistant.
He'll be on the staff.
He'll be on staff.
He'll be his favorite assistant coach. Okay, the New Jersey Devils, other than bringing in the Hamburglar, did nothing, which is basically like doing nothing. But they may have needed.
No. I think the Hamburglar move was in full. I think the reason they did that is because now Wedgwood's gone. They don't fully trust Blackwood.
Blackwood's hurt,
and they know Bernier could be done. They had to bring in a goalie that could potentially at least play 30, 35 games next year. So I think they accomplished that.
This is like the musical chairs of goaltenders.
It is. It really is.
John, surprised they didn't get something for Corpusalo, I want to say. I am.
You mean Columbus did?
Yeah.
What? Well, I mean,
maybe they tried and they just didn't like the.
Sorry, did you move on to a different team? I got a text in the middle of that and I lost it. I apologize.
New Jersey.
I apologize. I got.
See?
I'm worse than you are. I really am sorry. I realized as I was saying that, I'm like, yeah. I really do want to talk about New Jersey. Go ahead, continue. Sorry.
But go ahead. Could talk about.
No, I was just saying, as far as the goaltending, Hamburglar, they probably look at and say, all right, at least we have 30 games covered for next year. Depending on what Blackwood's health is like, depending on what Bernier's health is like, they do have some issues now though because of these guys being dinged up.
No.
I don't think they have their starting goalie right now on their team for next year. Okay. I really don't. And talking to them, I think that they tried to get in on some things. They tried to make a big move actually for a goalie at one point. They did try to trade for Holtby while Holtby was still available. They also, they even had discussions about, Corpusalo. They definitely wanted to make, I
hadn't heard that. So Corpusalo is out for the year. So
he's done for the year, which is why he wasn't traded.
Is this the curse of Corey Crawford? Is this ever since?
Yeah, that they do really consider that to be a big moment when things went south. I mean,
yeah,
and it's funny when you watch them. I watched them last night. I tweeted about it. It's like there is a team, like you said, Mike, definitely trending on the way up, and there is a team that has some at moments this reminds me a little bit of Colorado before they were good. I'm not putting them in that category, but I'm saying that you can see that when they're playing at their best, like the night before when they played the Rangers, but I'm rushing that game, obviously, they were just monstrous.
Oh, they destroyed them in the second period. Yeah.
Well, they had a goal taken back.
Here's where I'm optimistic about the Devils. They have 1-2 up the middle, Heischer, Hughes, Heischer. So that's an advantage, and they have them both locked up. That's really good. Yeah. You have Dawson Mercer, a young player who I think is good. You have a couple veterans. Now injuries have killed them. A guy like Miles Wood was a useful big forward. He's been out for most of the year. They can't find a veteran number 2 to be behind Blackwood, and Blackwood is broken down. So maybe they think Nico Dawes will end up being the number 1, but they're going to be out there looking for a goaltender. And their defense, I like Graves.
Yeah, Graves was a good ad.
Yeah, I like Graves. I like Severson. Subban. I mean, okay. I don't know if PK Subban will get a veteran minimum contract next year.
I agree. I don't know if
he's
he will.
So slow now that he can't pull away from anybody.
I think it is time for him to go into broadcasting, honestly.
Yeah. Mark Stahl's better than PK Subban, which I don't know if I would ever have said in my life.
Is it possible that he goes to Toronto or Montreal and just plays out a year and then becomes a broadcaster there? I thought about that.
I've said for a while. I think because he's right-handed, I think there's a possibility.
Yeah, I mean
that I don't think he'll go back to Montreal, but I think because Montreal's rebuilding, it would be a sideshow if they brought him back to Montreal. In Toronto,
they wouldn't do that.
If there's anything left, they would bring him in, but I don't know if there's anything left. That's the thing. It's I honestly think they'd spend more money because remember, Giordano is 38 years old. He's coming to the end of his career, but I've watched him a couple times this year. He's still got something. I think they would pay a little extra to get Giordano on a 1-year contract than to spend $750K on Subban.
There's another thing here that's bubbling up in the chat room that I want to bring up. So apparently, Stephen Valiquette, who I know him a little bit. I've been with him on a couple of other shows. Great guy. He's got his own analytics company.
Really funny
He's
guy.
on MSG.
Yeah.
He called PK Sluban the other day.
Yeah.
Now, listen, he ended Sammy Blais' year.
Yep.
He really hurt Ryan Reeves with it. He's been doing it for about 2 seasons,
Mhm.
and Devils fans got incensed at that. And listen, I don't think you should get incensed at it because
It's true.
he's been doing it and getting away with it, and it's true. And if he wanted to say it once to kind of be cute, I have no problem with it.
Okay. The Rangers, 5 moves, 4 of them of a fairly significant variety before the deadline. Adding Vetrano, adding Braun, the minor league deal of Merkley for Boteto, adding Andrew Kopp, and adding Tyler Mott. Is this too much, Russ? Did this mess with team chemistry?
I think it may have like reshuffled the deck a little bit on defense, and I think that was part of the breakdown against the Devils because
they looked bad against the Devils.
They did look bad, and so I do think there's always an adjustment. Yeah. Now it'll be up to Gallant to find the right guys and put them in the right spots. But here's what I always say: listen, just because you picked up Tyler Mott doesn't mean he has to be the 4th line center. If it doesn't look like it's working out, then just go back with McKegg because the other guys know him, and Mott can just be your super sub.
You worry about that, you worry about this because the 4th liners are tend to be like when you're in locker rooms, like some of the most popular guys on the team.
Yes,
because everyone, all those stars are thanks for doing what you do, and they're going out there and they're taking up the minutes and they're taking the hits and they're banged up and all that stuff, and they know there's no glory to them and they're making $750,000. So when you pull one out of the lineup and throw someone in from another place, it is really a risky move. Making a change on a 4th line on a team that's playing as well as the Rangers is something that I would have really thought.
Yeah, and look, they could always switch back. I mean, Andrew Kopp scored in his first game, so that clearly was a good thing. But
Andrew Kopp, I'm not worried about as much because he is I've met Andrew Kopp. I've talked to him. He's an outstanding guy. He is.
Yeah. He has an arresting personality.
Well, everybody's a comedian today. Keeping up with the Joneses, arresting personalities. All right. So I'll have to come up with my pun before the end of the show. But Andrew Kopp, I really feel fits in beautifully into any locker room. He's not, it's rare that you meet hockey players that you're like, wow, he's really intelligent. You talk to him and you're like, wow, okay, there's a guy who, who could be like a GM someday or something like that. He's got.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that.
He's got a strong intelligence he's able to, as I'm not right now, able to put words together in a way that really impresses you. You just wow, okay, that's
one of the better scoring GMs in the league. I mean, clearly Joe Sakic is the best, and Ron Francis right now.
Yzerman's pretty good, yeah.
But he,
look at Yzerman up there, right? Yzerman, come on now.
Yzerman, yeah, I forgot about Yzerman. Yzerman, all right. So yeah, I guess now do we go by points or talent? Because you know what? I think Joe Sakic's better than all 3. I do.
There's a great debate between Yzerman and Sakic that went on even back then when they were playing.
I think it's Sakic, Yzerman, and Francis.
I think Yzerman over Sakic every day of the week. Other people take Sakic over Yzerman.
I take Sakic because I'll tell you why. I get it that Yzerman always got this amazing credit, and he was a really gutsy guy, especially late in his career. But Joe Sakic did everything you want as a hockey player, and almost never got credit for it, even in his best point years.
Right. No, that's true. He didn't get the credit he didn't get the credit he deserved, but he's unbelievably talented. I mean, Sakic and Yzerman are really really close.
They're really close.
I mean, and it's a debate. On any given day, if I back when they were playing, I could have watched Joe Sakic play one night and be like, yeah, he's better than Yzerman, or watch the Yzerman play and he's better than Sakic. There's certain situations in games they were just ridiculous.
And listen, Garen's right up there in points too. He'll be like 4th.
Now we can fast forward through the Islanders because they did nothing, and the news that came out today is that Cal Clutterbuck is having season-ending shoulder surgery, so that might be the reason why
he wasn't moved. But
but to extend him for 2 years and to extend Zach Parise for a year, I'm still
okay. So yeah,
I want to skip past him real quick because I wanted to say one thing because I talked to somebody up on the island yesterday about this because I knew we were going to do this today, and And they confirmed what I had said before, and then I talked to Tom Laidlaw about it, who also confirmed what he had, because Laidlaw had players he used to represent that were on the Islanders too, and or on the Devils back then. I mean, under Lou, and if you're part of that inner core of players, like that 4 or 5 players that Lou lets basically run the team, you get to call the shots, whether you're traded or not. Like basically, and I think that's really what happened with these 2 guys you're looking at, with Parise and Clutterbuck. They're in that group. I mean, it's so strong that way that, very rarely has a goalie been allowed in that group, I've been told. And Sorokin isn't in that group. But, Marty Brodeur was in New Jersey, of course.
Yeah.
It got to the point where Brodeur actually, for most of his career, was calling whether he was going to start on a given night or not. Like he was actually making the call over the coach. That actually happened in New Jersey for several seasons,
which was most nice because he played 65 to
right.
70.
And which is what happens when you give a player the opportunity to make the choice. He's going to say, "I'm going to play. I'm going to play all the time." Right.
All right. Here's the problem though. Okay, so Clutterbuck will be lucky if he starts the season on time now with shoulder surgery. He probably will, but he'll be lucky too.
6 month injury. Yeah.
Parise will be 38. He was averaging 14 and a half, over 14.55 a game, almost 15 minutes a game.
That's third line ice time.
And he can't do that. Like this is, I don't care if they're all in a circle singing Kumbaya and they all love each other. They made contract signings this year at the deadline that will hurt them in the future.
This is the problem. They have the most expensive 4th line in hockey with Clutter.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I mean, I agree with you.
That's insane.
Like we said, they are of the belief, right or wrong, will not be determined until next year.
Right.
That they can take a mulligan and be back right where they were and be again a favorite to win the Stanley Cup. That's what they believe. They completely believe in Sorokin.
I don't dispute that they should believe in Sorokin because I think Sorokin's a pretty good goaltender, but we talked about this ad nauseum. Their defense is not good enough after trading Taves, Devin Taves to Colorado, after trading Leddy to Detroit. They have no speed.
I agree. And here's the difference between the New Jersey Devils era and this era. There's a lot of differences, obviously. One, it was easier to make the playoffs in the New Jersey Devil era. But and not all those Stanley Cup teams, by the way, won the division that the Devils had. Remember that? Like that Devils team was a playoff team, and they were good in the regular season, and they sometimes were great in the regular season, but they weren't always like the President's Trophy winner.
No. But
and the reality is now, like it used to be that if you had one of the top 5 goalies in the league, which I think the Islanders have, if you had one of the top 5 goalies in the league, you were going to make the playoffs no matter who you put on your lineup, essentially.
They played suffocating enough defense during the regular season.
Just having a goalie in the top 5 got you into the playoffs. Like everything else was even enough that you could, you might just barely make the playoffs. But there weren't many years where you could look at the best goalies if you went by the top 5 goalies each season, where I bet you could find any team in the 80s or 90s or early 2000s that didn't make the playoffs if they had a top 5 goalie.
Now we talked enough about the Flyers.
One more thing I wanted to mention.
My point about it is I think it's changed now. I think you could have a top 5 goalie and not make the playoffs, and I think we might see that next year.
Okay. I wanted to ask: did we honestly think? And this is really more than I thought too. COVID plays a little part in this. The Islanders are ranked 14th in attendance, right? So they can fit a little over 17,000, and there are games where they don't even have close to that. And so they're averaging 16.9. So the fact is that they haven't averaged, I think they've only actually had a couple sellouts this year. The fact that they haven't averaged at least what the rink is in their first season, that's not a good sign, Nick.
No,
I think part of that, though, they're going to write this off again, and right or wrong.
I know they're going to write it off. But
they're write off again, as you know, New Yorkers were some of the most careful COVID people you could find, especially out on Long Island. Like there were people out there that stayed in quarantine way longer than, this is what I've heard them say, way longer than other people stayed in quarantine in other parts of the country. New York was really nervous about COVID.
Right, but what about lately? They're not selling out lately.
Well,
they're not selling out lately because the teams
are meaningless. I mean, they're absolutely
not selling out lately because the team sucks.
It's the first year of a rink. You should be selling out.
I think again, they're so meaningless that it's just to them.
Right.
I mean, there's like Greg's right in this case. They're terrible, and it's just like and I'm not saying that. I'm still a little bit surprised. It's a small arena for a new arena,
right?
But I really would like to do some research into what their suite sales are like as far as super boxes and things like that. Because that building,
it's better than the Coliseum. That's
it is. Yeah, for them, it's got to be a whirlwind of money. But but I was told, that arena was going to have less regular seats in it and more suites in it, right? So the idea is that that's a super box driven place. And if that's the case, then, those sellouts might not matter as much if you're getting like $100,000 a year for all
Okay,
those.
but here's an example. Like February 1st, 2022, 15,258 against Ottawa. Like they should be having some sellouts because it's a new rink. It doesn't matter. I could tell you if this were the first year of a rink in Philly or a rink in New York, they would be selling out games no matter what the team is like.
I do think the product matters here, Russ.
It shouldn't though, but it has always mattered
in the New York area. In the New York area, Russ, it matters just because the New York area is different. You know that it's like New York area. There are so many things to do, so many options for your entertainment that you can find. If a Saturday night comes up and you're like, should we go to the Islanders game or should we go to this? Should we do that? There's so many things to do that New York. You're always fighting for that. You're always that's the problem with the Islanders and Devils, and it always has been. It's like,
listen, the Mets stink a lot of years, and they still will get over a couple of million people there.
Mets are iconic.
Let's fast forward past the Flyers because we talk about the Flyers so much. Now the Penguins, they made two moves. One of a minor, adding a depth in Nathan Beaulieu. The other one was the big move for Raquel. And you look at this move, and you got a top 6 guy who can play center or wing, and really all you gave up were, I think, bottom 6 guys in Simone and Ashton Reese.
But here the thing about that is Ashton Reese, an incredibly popular player on that team.
That was
really shocked when they moved him because and also one of Brian Burke's favorite players on that team. Like when I talked to Berkey I had just a meeting, like a old Zoom meeting forever ago, right after you took the job. I had a Zoom thing with him, and he talked about Ashton Reese. Like he's like, that's the guy. That's the kind of guy we want to model our team after. Like that's to him that's the kind of effort and work at. And I remember watching him a couple times, and even like when we were in the bubble, Russ, and saying just like, holy cow, that guy's a guy to like.
I think you're right in the sense that they upgraded talent wise, but they had to give to get, and they took something out of a formula that was working for them.
Another team that was built largely on chemistry, because there are issues. If that team's chemistry isn't good, just like the Rangers, if their chemistry isn't good, they're not nearly as good as you think they're. Like they have large drop-offs if their chemistry goes south, and you start to see all these holes throughout their lineup.
I put them in the same category as Carolina and Toronto in terms of whether they can feel confident in their goaltending going in the playoffs. I mean, Jari has played great this year in the regular season, but until he stands on his head in the playoffs, that question about last year is always going to be there.
No, that's fair. It's a fair question.
Now, finishing off this, because we saved the Dadonov talk for you, the Capitals just made 2 minor moves. They added veteran forwards. One they know pretty well, Marcus Johansson, because he'd been with the Caps for a number of years, and Johan Larsson. They gave up. I like the deal from Seattle's point of view, getting Sprong, because I think Sprong is probably better than Marcus Johansson, but.
Right.
They relied on familiarity and they wanted a couple veteran guys, but I don't see the moves that Washington made moving the needle too much.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I think that, I think the Capitals are in a little more trouble than people realize sometimes. Like I really do, I know.
What's trouble? I mean, you said they weren't going to make the playoffs. 80 points. They're not in any trouble as far as the regular season goes.
Oh, gosh.
They're in no trouble in the regular season, Eck. There is 0 chance they will drop out of the playoffs. 0.
A 0 chance.
A 0% chance, yes.
No, I know there's 0 chance they're going to drop out of the playoffs, Russ. But I mean, and that's obvious right now, right? Because even though the Islanders picked up some ground in the last couple of days, but they're definitely falling out of the playoffs. But
Jesus Christ.
I'm just having fun with you now, guys. I promise you. It's sarcasm, okay? I know it's. Well, I was serious. I was really serious. I thought, and man, I'm telling you this: the Capitals went on a crazy streak of like 8-2 in 10 games. At the same time, the Islanders went on the same kind of streak. If the Capitals have been continuing to play like
they didn't have 18 points in between them, that would mean something.
No. It's not 18 points. It's 10 points. And but anyway, the reality is like if they didn't go, they saved their season by going hot the same time the Islanders got hot. The Islanders got hot too late, so that was their problem, right? But anyway, okay, so The Capitals, though, listen, I mean, I know I picked them out of the playoffs. I know everybody thinks I hate them. I don't hate them. I do think that they are very, very driven by Ovechkin, and how Ovechkin does is how they do. I do think their goaltending is very iffy, and even though I think both of them have a potential to be very good, no one has taken the reins yet. So it's one of those situations where if you have two goalies, you really have no goalies. You know, they need a goalie to really step up and be the guy in Washington, and it hasn't happened yet. I know we have Washington Capitals fans in the chat room too and stuff like that, and I am not anti Capitals. I'm not. The reality
is, two things that have impressed me about the Capitals. They weathered the storm from you, because you were sinking their ship a couple months ago. But they
also
all
powerful. We know that. So yeah, go ahead.
But they're also a +31 in differential, which is higher than some of the other teams in higher spots than them, which is probably better than we would think.
Right. Goal differential in this conference, Russ, is totally out of whack, because there are teams that are so negative. It's like the closest team to them is the Blue Jackets, and they're
we have a higher goal differential than the Rangers, which I wouldn't have expected.
Well, you have Ovechkin, you know. It's like
the Islanders. Okay. The Islanders have 4 games in hand,
yeah,
and they are 17 points behind.
I know. They're only 17 now. And
here's the other thing that they need to get credit for, Ek.
Yeah,
27-5 on the road. That is a heck of a road record. Now,
their road record is astonishing. It is really good.
Their home record needs to get better, but I think it can.
Okay,
I think on the road, I think their key to the road. I watched one of their games the other day, and I was like, interesting. Their key to the road is how much people on the road focus on Ovechkin, and
that's a factor for sure.
And try to stop him. And I think that screws up teams. Like I was noticing, some I was forgetting what I watched. Was it Florida maybe? They played him. I think it was Florida or it was Nashville, where they actually broke up one of their lines to better match Ovechkin's line. Why don't do that? That's
I agree. I don't think you should do that.
Okay. Yeah. To finish off the show, Dadonov, Ek.
Yeah. It went as it should have gone. I was right and Kevin Allen was wrong. Which is rare to say. I don't think I can say that very often. But no, I think that there was absolutely zero chance that it was going to go any other way. That was, it.
Once it was established that the no trade was in place, then yes, you're right. Then they had to avoid the deal. But the thing is that Vegas is not getting penalized.
That is crazy. Well, I know what's happening. You know why they're not getting penalized? Because everybody thinks that Ottawa is the one who really made the mistake here, and that is, I'm trying to figure out how that logic plays, because
I don't either. I don't understand that logic.
From what I understand,
they lie. Did they just flat? Now, I've heard people say this, and I'm not. This is total speculation. So I'm not. Again, this is not news. This is not even what I think happened. This is just me saying, okay, this is what I've heard. There are people who say that Ottawa just flat out lied about something regarding that the no trade or whatever died with them or whatever, and that's just. But who cares if they said that? It
doesn't matter. The facts are the facts, right?
In the contract, you
have to look.
You still can't assume that. You still have to go through the contract and make sure. So at the end of the day, I have no idea. It feels shady. I mean, I saw that Vegas welcomed him back today on their Twitter.
Yeah, that was the funniest thing. My answer was to that, and I put this to the chat room to our guys. My answer to that was, well, you might as well put him in the locker next to Jack Eichel now, because at this point, at least he could bitch to Jack Eichel about problems with the team, because he's going to feel weird the rest of the year. There's no way around it.
I know.
Okay, here's the explanation from Elliot Friedman. Mm-hmm. Dadonov was traded from Ottawa to Vegas on July 28th last season. Yeah. 4 weeks after submitting his no-trade list. One of two things appears to have happened on that call. Either everyone was told Dadonov hadn't submitted the list, or for some reason the 2021 list was entered into evidence, leading to the assumption Dadonov had not filed on time, thereby voiding any protection. So it sounds to me as Vegas made the assumption based on the error that Ottawa made the previous year, thinking that they could trade him anywhere because the no trade clause was void.
Okay, I want to ask a dumb question now.
That's crazy.
Before you make a trade and a player has that kind of list, aren't you incumbent of asking that player in person, is this still your list?
Yeah,
or at least having one discussion with the agent.
They probably would.
Saying, hey, we're going to move your guy. We have to. But and that's very typical. Is there something? Is there some place
a player probably wouldn't know? It's probably
but X-ray. It has to be with the player or the agent. One or the other.
This goes back to me being that Vegas is not a good group of people right now. If you're a good group of people, Dadonov has been a soldier for you. He has played hard this year. He's
played great.
He's played great. And when you're moving him, you at least go to the agent and say, listen, I don't know if I can help you. We got to move him for a trade. I really feel terrible about it. He's been a great soldier. Is there a place you think that he would like to go that we can talk, let them at least and see if we can figure something out there, and that's very commonly happens. And then the agent goes to work, and teams will do this all the time. They'll set the agent on it and say, okay. And the agent will try to make a deal. And agents make deals all the time. I can tell you right now that, Bill Zito back in the day made the deal that brought Chemo Tiemann into Philadelphia. It's like these trades happen all the time.
Now, okay? What the result of this deal, and this has been talked about by almost everybody, is that there's going to be a central registry of all the no trade clauses and all the no move clauses and every aspect of these contracts. It's been on the teams to make sure that they were doing their due diligence and they were following the letter of the law. But now this is such a black mark because they allowed a trade to happen and then had to reverse it 2 days later, that they're not going to let that kind of black mark happen.
They should have lost the draft pick. They should have.
I think what has to happen.
How can you say that?
I can say that because if I'm the league, I go right to McCrimmon and say, hey, did you talk to the player or did you talk to the agent?
Their responsibility. That's how the league.
They say no for both. I'm docking you because that's what you need to do. You don't take the word of anybody in this situation.
They don't have a draft pick to dock, so there you go.
No, we did. We know.
And it's a 2024.
We know he didn't talk to the agent. I heard that we know they didn't talk to the agent, and the agents because the agent said, "Yeah, I was."
Right, so to me, it's case closed after that.
Yeah, the agent said he was baffled when he heard the trade went down because he's like, well.
Based on what I just read, they went on the assumption that the no trade provision was voided because it was filed late by Ottawa or filed late by the player.
Listen, they're trying to blame Ottawa for something that is their fault.
They really are, and they're dumping it off on Ottawa. And that confusion, I think, just that confusion alone is. I don't think the NHL really wants to bring more attention to this. No, I don't think I think they're embarrassed by it as it is, and I don't think they're going to be like going out there and saying, okay.
But the interesting thing is that I've heard from a couple people. John Shannon mentioned it on Twitter, and I heard somebody else talk about it, that the possibility is still there. Even though they welcomed him back with open arms, Russ, they could trade him to another team after the deadline just to clear the cap spape, and then he would.
I'm sure he'll be really, really easy to do. I'm sure he'll give them the teams that if I'm him right now, if I.
Oh no! If you're him right now, that list, I'm holding to that list.
Yeah,
there is no way you're going to convince me to go anywhere else. Right?
He better pray that Arizona or Seattle or some are not on his list.
Here's the crazy irony: if for some reason, even though there's only a 25% chance now, according to everything, that Vegas Knights would make the playoffs, if they made the playoffs, that he could actually be a force in the playoffs, and that would be a crazy story.
He hasn't been a force all year. He hasn't been a force all year. He scored a couple goals in the last few games.
15 goals, Mike. That's not nothing.
He's not
nothing, and he's also had game-winning goals, and he's had game-tying goals.
He's not a force-like player. He's not that type of. He's a skill guy.
Well, X said one thing that is true. While Vegas has been struggling for the last couple of weeks, he has kept them afloat.
Yeah, he has.
One single thing.
He has. I mean,
didn't say that. Don't parse my words.
And I'll tell you the one game that I mentioned before, but he flat out won the Panthers game for them. He scored the game tying goal and the game winning goal. And they were both like individual type efforts, and they were both great goals. So to me, it's insane that.
No, I disagree with Bill C that it should be a financial penalty. This is a competitive advantage situation because had this not gotten caught, and all of a sudden, like I said, the team makes it to the Stanley Cup, and you've now found out weeks and weeks later that this trade never should have happened, it could have compromised the entire playoff structure at that point.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it could have. And I don't see any way it wasn't
a big advantage.
I will say this. I don't see any way it wasn't going to get caught. Like, it's not like,
I mean, we say that, but
it's not like that says, okay, and his agent says, okay. I mean, they knew this was happening. They knew this was wrong.
Yeah.
So it's not like, like it just, you don't just go move your family and everything like that for something isn't.
No, I guess that's fair.
I just don't think it could happen. Now, the big guys talked about Krug earlier, maybe.
No.
Big Torrey Krug news. That he's hurt. He got hurt and it doesn't look good at all. And I was told,
well, maybe that's why they got Letty.
I think
this happened Tuesday night.
Yeah, they said he's out week to week.
It says week to week, but talking to people a little bit closer to the scene, I'm not so sure it's week to week. Like it might be more like month to month. And it sounds pretty serious. Hopefully it's not. Like
well, they have Scott Perinovich, and if they want to see what he is, they could see what he is for the next 15 or so games.
Yeah, this happens Tuesday night. You know, obviously, if they don't, I remember talking to somebody in St. Louis, and I was like, "What do you need?" They said, "We need another Torrey Krug." That's what they said they needed. And then here they don't have their first Torrey Krug anymore. So that's a really big blow to them. Their defense was their problem, and
well, that's what I'm saying. But they may have an answer in house.
Yeah, they might, and hopefully, that works out for them, and we get to see something from that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not. So that is definitely something we're gonna have to watch tonight. A whole bunch of fun games to watch tonight. This is obviously the Florida Panthers debut of Claude Giroux kind of headlines it all, I think. But that's going to be it's funny. Just so I talked to Dan Wallace, our Minnesota Wild writer too. Like seeing what happens when Marc-Andre Fleury gets traded to Wild, like his comments go from like 5 to like 30. Like it's just like. It's funny how some players have people that they follow fans that follow them from team to team, and Fleury and Giroux are definitely. Giroux we haven't seen move before, but there's no question that the amount of people watching that game versus the actual Flyers game tonight might be
going to shift. Yeah, I think they'll get better ratings than the Flyers will.
I think they will, and this is a team that's not used to that, and already the request apparently for Giroux jerseys is off the charts in Florida. So. It's definitely like Claude Giroux night tonight. We'll see. And he is the kind of guy who does rise to the occasion on things like that. So it'd be interesting to see. Like, I would be shocked if he doesn't score tonight, kind of thing. It feels like that to me. Like, it's just like, that's the way he goes.
I'm not going to put that on him, but
not putting it on him, but historically that's, he's going to be a factor, and I would be shocked if he doesn't get a goal, or make or if not a goal, then make a really nice pass and Barkov scores or something.
Hopefully some little kid in Florida doesn't go up to him and ask him to score a goal in his first game, like other sports have done.
Right. I don't think it'll be really fun.
And then the guy hits 3 home runs and
right instead. Exactly.
These are not home runs, these are goals, Mike. Get your sport right.
I know. I really appreciate you guys covering today for me. Sorry I was late. It's crazy stuff. Tonight, other games tonight that you have to look out for. Because the Panthers are playing in Montreal, by the way, so that's what that game is.
I think the other big game probably would be Stars Hurricanes is big because the Stars need to can overtake a couple teams in the wild card race.
They could if they only win.
Lightning. The Lightning have not played well lately.
No, but the game tonight to watch is Vancouver, Minnesota, Mike. That's the other one.
Yeah, that's a game I'll probably watch
because Vancouver wins last night. And by the way, I texted you guys this, and of course didn't get a response. But I texted you this. Like, I'm watching that game last night, and the Colorado announcers were like acting like the Avalanche are God's gift to the world. Like, I know they're a great team, but they're sitting there and say after 2 periods it was 0-0, and they're sitting there and saying, "Man, it's incredible. They're letting the Canucks play with them tonight." They're just like that. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
They're leading the President's Trophy race by 5 points.
They're very good.
But I know, but that's the reason why they're talking like their shit don't stink, because it doesn't.
But that's got a fair point. When it's nothing, that's not exactly the time to do it. If it's 5-0 in the second period, feel free.
I wasn't going to watch the rest of the game until they started talking like that, because suddenly I became the biggest Vancouver Canucks fan in the world. Like, I'm sitting there and like, this is brutal.
They've lost 4 games in regulation at home. They're 25-4-3. They have a reason to talk.
It wasn't that they were talking themselves up as much as they were talking the Canucks down. Like, and the Canucks, I know, have been a team that has struggled this year, but they're now like 2 points out of a playoff spot, and there's every chance that they can make it as anybody else. So the reality is, to win in, last night, to win in Colorado, that's a huge win for them. And I know it's not expected, but just to say the kind of things they said, it's like, if this was a national broadcast, it would be news like crazy. I mean,
So Eck was is Peter McNabb still part of that broadcast?
I don't even know who was in it.
Because if he is, Mike's very familiar with him.
Yes, former Sabre, former Bruin.
I don't know. I wish I was watching it.
It says online he is, but I don't know if he's just doing like studio color.
I think the play-by-play announcer is Dan Kelly's son.
Yeah. Okay. John Kelly.
All right. So Johnny Red says they've been doing that for Johnny Red. You heard?
Oh no, Mark Moser. Mark Moser's their
Mark Moser. Okay.
Because yeah. So Johnny in the chat room, like, you have my back here. It's insane. I mean, it's like, and listen, I love the Colorado Avalanche team, and I haven't watched a bunch of their games this year. So maybe, or when I have, maybe I've been watching the other team's broadcast or something like that. But I just never heard anything like this, and it's just like to see the way the way it sounded. I'm going to watch their next game just to see, and you guys need to watch it. We just have to watch it just for this purpose. It's going to be. I mean, there's favoritism that happens. These guys get paid by the team, and I know it's a tough spot to be in.
No, but there's a limit. But I do want to ask. I just thought of a very good question because of something that's in the chat room. My last question for this show is, Mike, when the Leafs end in the playoffs, will you hold up your sign?
I'm sorry, you broke up.
When the Leafs season ends in the playoffs, will you hold up your sign, your little book there?
It's over. Sign.
No, because that sign is regular season, and
then we should auction It's Over sign off on Patreon.
Oh wait, so this is only for the regular season?
Yes,
like Mike's tablet there. It's
this
over.
Is an exclusive New York Islander. It's over sign.
So what would the Leafs one? Will the Leafs one be in blue marker?
Well, this isn't blue marker.
And the Leafs, by the way,
like
stop wearing
blue for the new color.
Stop wearing different jerseys.
Black, I do it black in reference to reverse or next gen.
Well, you could do the it's in blue and the black.
That jersey is so terrible. The one they wore last
over
night.
in black, yeah.
The one they wore last night is so terrible. You have one of the iconic jerseys in all of sports.
Oh no, you're going to go on.
It's awesome.
You talk about that because we have to end. We'll talk about that tomorrow because we have to.
All right, we'll talk about tomorrow.
No, we're at 1:20 here.
All right, you got it. All right, yeah, guys, we'll talk to you guys later. Remember, folks, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Thank you very much for watching. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Watch the game tonight. Fun stuff.